count to about 10 seconds and then go. So we let the tape roll a little bit.
I'm Mont, Whitson, Professor of Sociology at Morehead State University, and with me is Joyce, LeMaster, Associate Professor of English. And our special guest today is James Steele, a well-known Appalachian poet and novelist. Recently, Mr. Steele mentioned that he would be willing to talk with us briefly about the genesis of his work, River of Earth. Back in 1987, here at the university, we had a symposium called Sense of Place in Appalachia, and at that time, Professor Foster of the English department at West Virginia University had as his lecture the sense of place in James Steele's River of Earth. And we had some interest in that, and we've been in contact with Mr. Steele about that. And today, Professor LeMaster and I would like to talk with him in that relationship, as well as other things that he might like to say about his own work. Joyce, so would you like to start, and then we'll turn it over to Mr. Steele.
Jim, your novel River of Earth is highly acclaimed and very much alive, almost 50 years after it was published. Would you tell us a little bit about the genesis of that novel, when you began formulating the ideas for it?
Well, let me go all the way back to my ancestors in Virginia, way back. That's a long time ago in pioneer days. They, on both sides of the family, they lived there. And the Lindsays up in Bearville in Frederick County, I believe, and anyway, the Steele was down in near Cumberland Gap. You may, if you go down to Jonesville, you may notice a sign saying the birthplace of Alfred Taylor Steele, who was the who began the science, if it is one, of osteopathy. He was the first osteopath. Later, he went on to Missouri and out there. Well, so, and my mother, well, as we are told, we have ancestors on fought the Revolution, both sides, and as we were given lands in one North Georgia, where my mother was born and grew up in Foxfire country, and my the Steeles over in Alabama, not too far away, in Appalachian, one of the Appalachian states, for that matter. So it wasn't entirely coming here or coming into Kentucky or in Tennessee. It wasn't entirely a complete change. And then, well, in the beginning, I came. It's a long story, but I wound up eventually during Depression days at Hyman Settlement School. There were no jobs anywhere for anybody, and somebody, well, I came up one summer in a recreational program, which was sponsored by the Congregational Church, though I was not connected with it anyway. And they, the settlement school, asked me to stay on, and they needed a librarian, so the next year came and lived there. And right away, I began to take notes and so on, which will, some of these, I kept notes for about 45 years, I think, in notebooks, things I thought were unique to the region. And just paying attention to it and thinking about it. Now, I haven't used those. Anybody who goes back and looks at those notes someday, books, they're in the UK library. They're just there for keeping. They're sealed. They don't own them. Like that, I just left them. They made copies for me and sealed. But I don't think you'll find too much relationship between those notes and my books and stories. Maybe in later days, I don't know. But I remember very well beginning to, let's see, I was 26 years old. I remember when I first just simply sat down and started to write. And I might say I began overnight. There's no preliminary writing exactly, not much, just a few little verses, a few little things like that. And I thought the other day something a man said to me, a friend there. He said, "You're always talking about writing. What's stopping you?" And what stuck me in my head, in my mind, and I started, and I always intended to write for the Atlantic Monthly. I decided back in Lincoln Memorial, the way I started there, I was a janitor. Everybody worked, had jobs. And at 9 o'clock, I locked the library and swept the floor and emptied the waste baskets, and rubbed up the tables, and then this library belonged to me for the rest of the night. And sometimes I slept there in the magazine room. I would be too sleepy. And really that was what, might say, what education I got was there mainly in that library. Somehow I found the great authors. I found Thomas Hardy and many authors that some of the Russians and so on, and Scandinavian writers. I don't know how that happened because, as I remember, that I was not directed to them by my teachers. But I came across the Atlantic, and I decided I wanted to write for the Atlantic. We used to get boxes of magazines and come at the library, and one of my jobs was to check the files, and if one was missing, put one in, and burn the others. I saved whole years, several years of Atlantics, and sent them home in the summer, not having no employment. I read them, studied them, and practically ate them. Well, if I ever learned the art of composition, well, I think that was my teacher. And I started right away. I mean, I sent poems to them, and they finally took one. And in time, they took 3 poems and 10 short stories, which in those days was something of a record, they tell me, one person. To be in the Atlantic was meant to be reprinted. So you got winning prize stories. In fact, one story won second prize. And I think Walter Faulkner won the first prize, which is okay, I reckon. And Best American Short Stories, and then they got into textbooks. And all of them, I think without an exception, went into textbooks. One little story, Mrs. Razor, has been reprinted more than 40 times and will be coming out again in a book.
What's the name of the story?
It's called Mrs. Razor. It's a little short, very short story. Well, this was all winding up, and one day, I remember distinctly doing this in the old school building there at the time of Settlement Grounds on a Saturday. I remember going into this, what we call the discarded book room. That was where if I had an office, that was it. And going in there, and I wrote this little story, and which is the first little section of River of Earth. I wasn't thinking about writing a novel. I wrote a little story, and I sent it off to the Atlantic, and they accepted it. But they didn't. I didn't say on the manuscript a short story, so they printed it as true, as a real happening. At first I didn't like that, and then I began to think, well, that's what I'm trying to do. I want fiction to sound like truth, you see. So that was all right. And then I was publishing verses and various Yale Review and Panini Quarter Review and Nation, New Republic, Esquire, and so on. And although they didn't always take them, but all of them were printing one time or another. And today, all my short stories have been printed, all my poems, except one that's been written recently, 2 or 3, been written recently. But coming back to the novel, I wrote that. I probably wrote that off in one day. I imagine I did. I think I did.
You wrote the entire novel?
No. I mean that story. That
The
one
story
piece,
in
that
one day.
first section. I think so. Working 6, 7 hours, and I remember being very excited about it. I don't remember writing much of the other. Now, Viking and the press, the editor there, they published a book of poems, Hounds on the Mountain, and then they asked me if I had a novel, and I told them I had a little piece of one, and I sent the first part of the novel and the last part, not much of it, to them, and they sent a contract later I asked if they didn't feel uneasy about giving the contract to some person who never written a novel, such a short, a little bit of manuscript, and my editor said we held our breath. And later, after the novel was completed, I asked him, I happened to be up east, and I asked him if there any changes, anything he had in mind, and he said, we trust your instincts. So there it is, for better or worse.
In the symposium that we had here at Morehead State University, Professor Foster made the statement that Mr. Steele's River of Earth has a very strong implicit statement, if not all the way through, an emphasis on place. That is, he calls it an important fundament in your work. And I was wondering if you would comment on that, since he writes in many places about your use of nature, the cultural landscapes, referring to the wind, the sky, the rivers, the lakes, and so on, and then the natural landscape, and then the cultural landscapes like family and kin and birthing and dying. And he says that he feels that it's one of the most important aspects underlying, at least, your work. Would you talk about his statement about that?
Well, I went to live, after I'd been in Heinemann for 6 years, I went back to live 9 miles from county seat. No car could come on those roads, wagon roads. It's really way back. And I went back to finish the novel River. I had started it. And this was, after all, this thing you're mentioning there, that's what life is there. That's what it's all about. Yes, I have a great identification with that place as far as I have a home, that's it. I feel at home there. I can't tell you why. I don't care where I am. And when I get back to that old log house and go in and sit down a few minutes, the world falls away. And I'm starting over again. I'm fresh. I'm new. I'm shriven. My sins are forgiven.
Sins are forgiven. Well, I guess I would ask, do you feel that your sense of place would be similar to the sense of place that are in the characters that you describe for us, characterize in your work? The people in the area, do you feel that they have a strong sense of attachment to the natural and cultural landmarks, and then you yourself, and then you kind of combine these two in your work? Would you speak to yourself as well as the people that you know so well there in the mountains?
I begin with these people there. I know them. I've outlived everybody in my area around except one man, and he's practically housebound. But they are certainly individualists. They have as much care for the ground, I think, as a Russian peasant. I mean, the idea of possession is very strong. And I've said sometimes, Shakespeare says, for example, this is, he said that men have died and worms have eaten them, but not for love. Well, one of my neighbors said, more men have been killed over a foot of land than ever was over a woman. So, to give you some idea, and even where I live, a few inches of land, just a few inches, means so much to people. And they certainly guard those. You see, now we are not really sure where the lines are, because there's somehow this stump and that white oak tree, that sort of thing. Well, they're all gone now. And on my land, there's even questions there. And I don't dare, neither of us want to bring it up, because I don't want to get in trouble. And I'm glad he joined the church recently, and then maybe he won't bring it up. And we can just let it go.
I'm interested in the point of view character, Jim of River of Earth, the young sensitive boy, and I wonder why you chose to tell the story from his consciousness?
Well, here it is, a first-person story. Elizabeth Maddox Roberts once told me, as she'd read the book, and she told me that you have done two of the most impossible things. And my first is to write in the first person, and the second part, this thing, is to write from the point of view of a child. Of course, this is being relayed a little later after now, every novel has to have a center somewhere. There's always, in fact, when I start reading, I want to know where the center is. I prefer it's not the author. So just too often, the author, the writing is back his center, and I resent that. I don't like that. I will go ahead a little bit and say this. That to me, for my purposes, all fiction is either illustration or it's just a happening. There's no author anywhere, you can't find him anywhere, no place. It's just that there's no accounting for it. I like to think Red Earth is such a novel. It just happened. And I hope you can't see me anywhere or the person who made that book. But rather it's in the boy is this center. As his first person, I don't want to keep saying I, you see? Mm-hmm. So I took him out. And so, in a sense, he's telling it that he is the center. We know, but you're not bothered by it. And you're not, he just guides you, through the book. No, that was on purpose. I definitely did not give him a name for that reason.
And that's why you didn't give him a name?
Yes, right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've wondered in reading this, as you go through and try to understand these characters and the events, how many of them you personally experienced? Like, did you hear the preacher preach the sermon, or most of these stories that you heard from others, how many of them you were personally involved in yourself, directly involved? Did you hear the sermon this minister preached?
No. I've heard many sermons. Many of them, no, and this has had nothing to do with any sermon I've ever heard.
Okay.
There was this psalm in the Bible that I know about. When I was a child, we used to our teacher had us memorize psalms. So that was the one that I memorized about the hills, leaping like lambs, so and so. No, I made it up. After all, I see, my mother's people were primitive Baptists, and I used to hear these sermons. And then I heard him here, over and over. No, I just wrote it. Wrote the sermon. I didn't, in fact, I don't remember thinking of anything special. Well, I thought I could remember that little part good about they were going to get the letter at Red Fox, and some of these instances really happened. We never knew. One time I heard that I had a letter at Red Fox. They didn't know. Somebody sent me word that there was a letter there waiting for me, and they didn't know where to send it. And I don't remember going after it, but that caused me.
Well, I guess I was wondering how many of these were kind of firsthand. You heard people tell these stories, little proverbial type stories, or something about their schooling, whether you got them direct or whether they were 3 times removed or 4 times removed as part of a long tradition.
Generally direct, right there. Some things I saw happen, some were I heard about in the stores or around the place. About at least I know 1,000 instances that might go into stores, but at that time, you see, that's been a long time ago. I hadn't lived that long, hadn't been there that long. So, no, I believe there's not a single instance there I couldn't point to, if I thought about it, to something that was local I'd heard about around there. I think so. I believe everything. Mark Twain said there wasn't a single instance in Huckleberry Finn that he hadn't happened that he knew about or heard from a reliable source.
Well, that's what, yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's what I was wondering about in your own experience.
Yes.
I'm interested in the, excuse me, go ahead, did you want
to? I think the proof of fiction, of course, is this story came true. It was not just fiction. It pass through the looking glass, so to speak. How can you do that? I don't know. I don't know how it's done. But it just happened here, I think.
I remember you said one time that some of your characters, and I'm not sure whether you were referring to characters in River of Earth when you said this, they just arrived and they grew and they spoke, and you were the recorder. You just wrote down what they said.
Yeah, I didn't seem to know, well, until when I'm working, until a character talks to me, it's not alive yet. It's an artificial situation. In writing, I don't have any ways of doing this or that, but in writing a short story, I certainly know where I'm going. I don't know, how do you know you got a story unless you know where you're going and what your premise is, for that matter. And it sort of takes care of itself. It just starts in my mind, starts thinking about it, and it grows and grows and grows. But where to start is the point, the main point. And when you do start, I just play with it. I play hard, so I don't do revision like people always ask me about it. How much revision I do, I practically none, because I play with this paragraph, and by the time I just play with it until I'm through with it, and I go on to the next one. The next one evolves, and while I'm writing this one, you just go forward. Remember, you just don't write the second sentence until you got the first one. I give my, I don't know how to describe it. Maybe some psychologists can. There are times when, again, it's kind of a state of what I call free association, when I can just write anything. Then there are times I couldn't write a letter to the milkman. I had to think to read and write a letter. You can't will those things.
I remember one time Hemingway said that when he reached a point where he felt he couldn't write anymore, that he remembered that if he could write one true sentence, that he could go on from there. He said that was his stimulus for continuing. I'm interested in the female characters in River of Earth, in Alpha and Grandma, who are unique and fascinating. Were either of these or both of these, to some extent, been based on women you had known?
Not any specific. Not that I couldn't point them down. They're nearest to, in the first place, I believe, I didn't think about this till years later. When I first went to Hammond Settlement School, I lived in a dormitory, a boys' dormitory. I lived off in rooms in one corner of that dormitory, and there was we had a house mother there, and there were little boys from about 7 or 8 in those days, in high school, for that matter. There was one little boy there, and his name was William Lee Parks. He was about 8, and he would, I knew his parents too, and I could never understand why they let such a fine little boy stay away from home. He didn't need to, because his father had a job, big fine job with the power company, and they were pretty well fixed and so on. But his father had gone to school there. But no matter. And the house mother would let him come into my, in the room and talk to me sometime, and he'd come in and tell me all kinds of tales. And one day I was sitting at my little typewriter, and he came in, and he started telling about the time he said, he liked to got killed. He said, his various escapes and so on. And while he was telling me, I started typing it. And that comes near to the origin as I can make it, I think. I believe so. Then, in this room up here, are notebooks that I had one summer, the FERA, Federal Emergency Relief Association. They had home visitors to go out in the county, and they give out commodities, and so on. And someone had the Bald Branch area was taking a vacation 2 weeks, and I was to take their place for 2 weeks, but they never came back. I don't know why. So I was there all summer. So I traveled all through that, going, you only go where you're invited, but you go into homes and you look in their meal barrels and you count the chickens and cows and decide how much, what they needed and this and that. And these little conversation books, we write down the data there, and then one day a week we'd stay in the office and write up the proposal, write the thing up. At least in old notebooks, raw notebooks up here. And as much as anything, there again, as a background for River of Earth. Those notebooks, you have them here.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have them all, I don't know.
That's good. We're very, very pleased to have.
If you would, I'd like for you to comment briefly on Foster's lecture that he gave. I think I sent you a copy. How do you feel that he did in interpreting the River of Earth from the standpoint of sense of place or any other aspect of it? What was your response to that?
I thought I was astonished at what he, how well he spoke about the novel, how much he knew about it, and I think he did very well. Anyway, I was very pleased with it. It just couldn't have been better. I think not.
I guess I'm thinking of that in context to a broader question. When your novel first came out, it was 1940, isn't that correct?
Yes.
People started writing about it then. There were reviews, and then there have been reviews since. What kind of response do you have to these reviews in the sense of maybe your first reaction and then the standpoint of maybe reinterpreting possibly what you did yourself from what they say, or have these reviews over the years given you in a different view of the work that you did?
No, I don't think so. Anything anybody writes about me has nothing to do with me. I just simply do not connect it. And here's some little ceremony, some which I'm involved in, which I'm center of, but yet I have this imagination of, so I'm just one of the people there. I don't even think about my being the one on the spot. I don't do it. I mean, it doesn't bother me. I don't think so. It happened that the old gentleman who I had, who gave many scholarships and gave me one, he was very pleased when I published the book. And he subscribed to a clipping bureau. I don't know whether they have them now or not. A clipping service, and every time my name was mentioned anywhere in newspapers all over the United States, reviews of River Earth, it was widely reviewed. Everywhere. It was widely reviewed. I have them everywhere. Even if you know 2 or 3 lines, it was king to me. About every 2 years, I get an envelope full. And he subscribed to it. Well, he subscribed for himself, and then he sent them on to me. That's what happened. And I think those over in the room, and they may have self-destructed by now because they're newspaper things. I don't know. I think they are.
One other question I would like to ask, the people that live near you in the mountains, some of them, or many of them, without maybe any more than an 8th or 9th grade education, how many of them maybe have read your book or read parts of it, and have you heard any responses from those kinds of people other than just those related to the university and people that are in the scholarly area? Say the common man, as it were, have they read your works and made any comments over the years to you about it?
If anybody, any of my neighbors have read one of my books, I'm not aware of it. Oh, they haven't read any books by anybody else either. So I'm not. However, I'm a little just beginning to realize that, for example, last year they made, these are all hamburgers there, or they're related to hamburgers all around me. And they made me an honorary member of the hamburger family. Anyway, they have this association. It made me an honorary hamburger. And when I went over to there, I wasn't present. And then when I went in last August to their big meeting, they come from all over the country. There's several hundred of them. And so when the program was going on and it was announced I'd come, and everybody stood up and applauded, so there must not be anybody mad at me.
Well, I guess they know that
But I wasn't aware.
they know that you're a writer of some
That's
sort.
That's not what it's about. What it's about is I live in a family ancestral home. It's the only one left, and I've taken care of it.
Mhm.
And they tell me they appreciate that. That's mainly it.
Okay.
And it also, they can come there. They know they're welcome to come. If somebody else had it, any of them had it, nobody could go in the gate hardly.
Well, I guess I was wondering if anybody ever comes up to you, like from the era, and say, I heard that you have a book called The River of Earth. I'd like to see a copy of it. Do you have that? It never happens.
Never.
Well, Joyce, would you like to direct another question or comment? And we probably need to close out here in a few minutes, and then Jim
Okay.
can make
I
whatever
would-
final statement that he would like to make. I think there's a dental appointment involved and some other things here, so we can't stay too much longer.
Okay, I would like to mention two quotes, Jim. Catherine Ann Porter spoke of the evenness and the unity of River of Earth. She said the novel is like, quote, a man telling an old, beautiful tale who almost imperceptibly drops into poetry at the right point, saying again what he has just said, but in different rhythms and deeper words, and then taking up his narrative again, unquote. I know writing style is a difficult thing to comment on, but I wonder if you would comment on that, if you would tell us a little bit about how your writing style, which you have been applauded for by so many people, by Fred Chappelle among many others, how it came to be as it is.
I haven't the slightest idea this is the way I write anything. I don't know how it is. The fact that I wrote poetry before has a lot to do with it. And I have been told that many of these paragraphs could just be broken up into poems. People tell me that. But I wasn't aware of that. I will say that sometimes in writing, even now, here's a paragraph I've written, but it doesn't flow. It's sort of static. I just set it up like a verse, and I can spot. It's difficult. What it is, it's holding it back. And for one thing, in writing, as I write it, it has to come true as I do it. I begin to believe it. It has to be true. And anyway, it's certainly psychologically true. I take the little story, The Nest. You might know about that. Now there's an example of it is, as I've been told, is psychologically sound. Mrs. Razor is used in two books of. One is called, you may have it here. Let's see, Reward of Psychoanalysis, which is used in medical schools and with teachers for students in psychiatry as a textbook. It's printed now as one volume. It used to be two. It's used as it's not as I thought about it. I didn't think of the child as being insane or anything like that. Then there's another one called The World of Psychoanalysis. No, that's the name of that book. Then there's another called something with the, I can't think about it. The work of missing the library up here. Anyway, let's see, the Creative Mind Dealing with Psychiatric Material. There again, is an illustration of childhood fantasy. Well, that's not exactly that. I wish I can't talk about the style. They say the style is the man. It's just me. And I would think my letters go something like that too. Anything I write, I don't think about that. Wouldn't know how to think about style. How would anybody know? I do know, I mean, looking back sometimes, something I've written 50 years ago, I can't believe that I write this. I get a little worried about it, See, I don't recognize it.
Well, one other thing I'd like to mention too. I remember one time you said that you never wrote unless an idea overwhelmed you.
Well, yeah, right. Just sitting down cold. No, it keeps bothering me. And so that's the way, in a sense, to get rid of it by doing it, you know. But I want to. You know, after a while, I begin to want to. People, especially in groups, they always ask me about inspirations. I don't know what they are. I said perspiration is the word. but I just feel inspired to eat when you're hungry. You know, if you can call that inspiration, well, all right. But I think that word, the idea is in their mind is that something hits me over the head, and all of a sudden I write something. That is not the truth. Which seems to have already formed itself.
Before we close out, then, if you would give us maybe just a brief summary of the genesis of the River of Earth, stated in a summation form here, so we can get it in a brief statement. I'd like to hear you close out our whole session with going back to the genesis of this work.
Well, I probably started writing about 1935, the first 35 or 36, I believe the first part of it. I'm not certain. And I had written it fooled around with about 3 years, I suppose. After all, I was working at that time in the school system. And I just had weekends to do this on Saturday. And not much of that because this settlement had 100 students. And we had these children on our hands 24 hours a day in this small place. And I had, because I looked at the library, I had all kinds of duties and everybody else did have to. I wondered that I could do anything. I was able to do anything. And so I just wrote it when I could. I was every moment I was looking forward to getting back to this story. I remember, and even today, that's the way I feel about something I'm doing. I'm always planning to get back to that time, get back to doing something, and that's mainly what I want to do in this world. And that's not a good summation, though.
Well, we appreciate very much your being with us today, and we hope to have opportunity to talk with you again. And so for Joyce and myself, we want to thank you for being at Morehead State University today.
No, thank you.